You're watching Speed Week's coverage presented by Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Cars are on the line, ready to roll in the first of two scheduled practice sessions, pre-qualifying practice for Daytona 500 pole qualifying Saturday on Fox. This is the story of the weather. Ignore the graphic and look at the dark clouds because the car wash is coming. It's going to be here in about 50 minutes. And there's a good chance that we might lose that second practice session today to rain. But we know better than to predict the weather. We predict a lot of things, and sometimes we're right and sometimes we're not. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip with you. So does a sense of urgency develop here, Darrell? Because chances are we're going to have a good racetrack for 45 minutes to an hour here.
No, this is when I'm going to find out if my buddy crew chief here, this is the best car we've ever had. This is the best motor we've ever had. We got this baby right. You go out there, you're going to run a fast lap right off the truck.
Right? All falls on your shoulders.
But the problem is, if it's not the best package, I'm not sure what we can really do because we're here and we've got two supposedly scheduled hour-and-a-half practice sessions. We always say it, even though you've worked for months and weeks to get here for Speed Weeks, what you've got is pretty close to what you've got. But there's a lot of people anxious to get on the racetrack because we do have some differences. Even though 24 teams had practice last night in the Budweiser shootout, it's a different deal. These are single car practice qualifying runs. We've got that little bigger restrictor plate. We've got different rear shocks. We've got a little different aero package and a lot of new race cars that's never seen the racetrack before.
See, that's the thing. If the driver didn't realize that he had a bigger restrictor plate, he'd go out and he'd say, hot dang, this thing on motor, baby.
I told you the engine shop's been working.
All right, cars are lined up. Denny Hamlin's first in the practice line. Mark Martin right near the front, and right behind him since the reigning Sprint Cup champion, Jimmie Johnson. For an update on Jimmie, here's Matt Yoakum.
Mike, it's much like when you're trying to erase all the information on your computer and you hit Control, Alt, Delete. Well, that's pretty much what's taking place with the NASCAR season as we kick off with our first official season practice going for the Daytona 500 speeds later on. Now, we talked about Jimmie Johnson. He's trying to add to history. Everyone else trying to keep him from it. Now, a lot of concern up and down the garage lane here. Weather. You talked about it earlier. Weather coming in. They're not sure if they're going to get a second practice session. And just how big is the breeze? Well, you can see how gusty the American flag is up on top of the U.S. Army truck. Everyone trying to get as much done as they can in this practice session. To Chris Devoda.
Well, Matt, as we said, the objective of this practice, get the most speed as you can out of your car. The driver who did that best last year, Martin Truex Jr. But the irony is, with the new rules, he's not in the Bud Shootout. So this will be the first time we will see him and his new organization, his new team, and his new crew chief, Pat Trison. I talked to Pat just a few moments ago. He said the camaraderie between he and Martin is great. And Martin Truex said he is as excited for the start of this season as he has been in a long time.
Thanks, Krista. Let's explain that number change. The first of many we'll explain to you today. Michael Waltrip ran 55, and he's turned over the full-time wheel of his car. Michael is here competing, and Martin Truex, rather than maintain the tradition of the 55, let's do something just a little different. What number did his dad race up north, and his grandfather, his uncle, and all the Truex family ran in what was the Busch North Series with number 56. So there you are.
And it's kind of cool because Rudiman's family has had the 00 number for 100 years. Buzzy ran it in the modified division, and David has it. Here, Martin's got the 56. Michael, on the other hand, he's a little confused. He thought,
and this is, go ahead.
He thought he was going to be number 15, but something must have gotten messed up in the decal department because he's actually number 51. That supposedly is, he wanted to be 15, but it turned out to be 51.
You know, something I think we need to explain is, as we mentioned, we're going to see single car practice qualifying runs. And the theory is, with this restrictor plate and the way the draft works, you don't want to even be able to see a race car when you're out there, because if you see it, there's more than likely it is helping and aiding your speed. But the track is open for practice. This is pretty much just a gentleman's agreement between the drivers and teams that we will take turns going out there, about 3 to 4 cars at a time. But trust me, if the rain starts moving in and we get down to about 10 minutes to go in practice, they'll be all over this racetrack.
As Denny Hamlin exits turn 4, Mark Martin's in the middle of the backstretch. Now, Hamlin had a rough crash yesterday. He and Martin got tangled up. and 6 of the Bud Shootout cars were wrecked as a result. Both going to backup cars for the running of the race tomorrow night. But these are not the same cars that anybody practiced here yesterday for the Bud Shootout.
Yeah, in fact, the way the rules are, they had those 2 practices last night. By the time the garage closes tonight, those 24 cars that'll be in the Budweiser Shootout, they have to be through inspection, and they go through inspection tonight, and NASCAR impounds them and releases them to the teams before the race tomorrow night.
Talked to Rick Hendrick this morning, and Rick said, we've got 60 COTs. I hope I don't use them all up before the race.
New sponsor for Mark for most of the races this year, GoDaddy.com. They will also have a presence in the IZOD IndyCar Series and the NASCAR Nationwide Series.
And by the way, I don't want to get too deep into this practice. Happy birthday, Darrell Waltrip. Today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my birthday, we're usually down here a little bit later, and so I get to celebrate at home with my family. But today, I'm in Daytona doing what I love to do.
You're celebrating it with your
my
Fox
buds.
family.
That's right.
And your
my
Speed
buds.
family.
Thank you.
Jimmy Johnson, as Matt said, trying to add to one of the most impressive championship dynasties in NASCAR history. 4 in a row with the Lowe's Chevrolet, and this team pretty much returns intact from 2009. Saw Rick Hendrick this afternoon. He is here and at the track, feeling well and ready to get this season started.
I'll tell you, the adjustments they made to these cars, Larry, the little bit different shock package on the rear, and I don't know if the fin has that much to do with it or not, but these cars have a little bit lower racing look to them than what I remember them having here last year. These cars have always kind of set up high in the back end, but you look at these cars now, they're pretty flat and pretty low in the back, actually.
Well, and you know, now we have to run the curved end plates on the wing where we used to have to run the flat ones at Daytona and Talladega. That actually adds a little downforce. The more downforce you put in the rear of the car, the more that holds it down too.
Yeah, you see Jimmy's car coming there. It's almost got the back down, kind of like the old hunkered down look that the cars had here a few years ago.
We're just getting started with the opening round of pre-qualifying practice for the Daytona 500. Mark Martin has the fastest lap so far. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Try a new way to indulge in Hershey's. By DirecTV. To get the most out of your high-def TV, you got to hook it up to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV. And by Toyota, moving forward.
Now, folks, I know if you just tune in, kind of watch a little practice here, this is not NASCAR's way of keeping these guys from wrecking again today. This is kind of like practice your qualifying runs. It's not because of what happened here yesterday. They're not letting them all out there at once.
Joey Logano, 6th driver to complete a lap on the clock in his Home Depot Toyota. Mark Martin is quickest. Denny Hamlin is 2nd, and Logano is only a 10th and a half off of Denny Hamlin's time, his teammate. So off to a pretty good start.
He's won about everything that he's run since we left Homestead.
Yeah.
But he won the Bodine Bobsled Challenge a couple of weeks ago up in Lake Placid. Won at Irwindale the other night in the K&N series of NASCAR. Everything he's touched since he left Homestead, he's won in.
Watching the 31 car here, I see one reason why he might be fast. That thing is, you know how they've been running the car sideways at some of the downforce tracks, cocked out to the right rear. If you watch this car head on, you'll see it's turned to the left. The back of the car is actually pushed toward the left, which is doing just the opposite. If you make downforce pushing it to the right, you're going to make less downforce pushing it to the left. So they've got the reversed angled rear end housing in this baby.
And there's a really good chance, since this is not an impound type race, once they get this car qualified, to get it ready to race, because handling such issues here, they'll probably change that housing out.
See, as you watch it come in, see how much closer the right front fender is to the wall and how far away the right rear quarter panel is.
It's almost like it's falling down the bank at the rear.
It looks weird right there. It's actually running. Well, you can't call that sideways.
Not quite.
That's that's a reverse slip. It's a reverse slip angle.
Interesting theory. How does the watch like it? Well, first was that his first lap? 48.78 it was. He's got one to go.
Yeah.
Kurt Busch in the Blue Deuce, the Miller Lite Dodge. How about them yellow wheels?
And they, had blue wheels on this thing for forever, and I didn't really like them all that much. And I'm gonna have to get used to this. A little different.
Now,
Won't be able to find his wheels in the garage, all right.
Easily.
Kurt's on his second lap. His first lap was a 48.54. And as they get to the second lap, which will be the money lap, the fastest lap, you'll see them run right around the bottom, trying to run the shortest distance around this 2.5-mile track.
Since we started running, or since Kurt Busch started running restrictor plate races in the number 2 for Roger Penske, he has scored more points in those races than any other driver. Total cumulative points.
And he runs well. I mean, he was in that very first Daytona 500 that we did back in 2001, and he always performs well. But as you see, and the numbers are the same at Talladega, 0 wins at the restrictor plate tracks.
He helped his teammate win one here 2 years ago, though.
He did that.
He pushed Ryan Newman right by Tony Stewart and his teammate.
Jeff Gordon. Big news in the Gordon household. They are expecting, Jeff and Ingrid expecting their second child this summer. Congratulations.
Yep.
We got a lot of expectant mothers in the motor coach lot. Ingrid Gordon, Shanny Johnson, Jimmy and Shanny expecting their first child. Elliott Sadler, his family expecting their first child here anytime.
That was a real good lap, man. You're P2 right now.
Second fastest to his teammate Mark Martin by not quite 0.2 of a second.
I'm surprised Jeff didn't say, well, it wasn't that good of a lap if I'm P2.
Matt?
And Mark Martin in that 5-car, fastest so far early on in practice. You came on the radio really pleased, and a good way to start this practice in the season.
These guys build such nice race cars, and it's beautiful. I like the green. GoDaddy.com on there, and everybody needs to check us out on GoDaddy.com, by the way. And yeah, it's a good start, fast. I don't have much to do with that part of it, so I'm tickled to death. Their hard work, it looks like it's going to pay off.
New sponsor this year, also a new workout program for you. You've kind of changed things up a little bit.
Yeah, changed. I've learned a few things and added a few things, and
what's the result?
Lean and mean. I'm still little, but I am lean, so I'm ready to go.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Isn't it funny how he just jumped in that car and went out and spanked him right away, right off the bat? Well, he's no longer the sheriff in town. That belongs to his other teammate. Dale Earnhardt Jr. just ripped off the fastest lap so far. Dale Jr., the fastest car of the 14 that have logged laps so far. We'll let you do your own over-under on how many cars are entered for this year's Daytona 500, and we'll tell you after the next break.
You know what's interesting about those 15 cars? There's not a Ford in near one of them. All those cars have been out so far. Is there an oval in there anywhere, blue oval?
There's a couple there.
Yeah, David Reagan's been out. He's 11th quickest, and Paul Menard is 13th quickest.
But you're right, in the top 10, Darrell,
Yeah.
not yet.
Hadn't cracked the top 10 yet.
And we, I think they and everybody had high hopes for Ford's new engine.
Yeah, well, they're gonna.
This year.
It's funny that they're gonna run the new engine in all the preliminary events, but when they get ready to run the 500, they're gonna put the old engine back in.
Okay.
And Jamie McMurray back driving for Chip Ganassi with Felix Sabates. He is 9th quickest in this one car. Jamie's one of about 6 drivers that will have to go to a backup car for the Budweiser shootout tomorrow night. Was involved in a crash in the first practice.
Brian Vickers will find himself still searching for speed. He's about half a second off of what Dale Jr. ran, and he's at the wrong end of the chart along with Marcus Ambrose there and Paul Menard.
Looking at this scoring monitor, you see 3 Hendrick cars, 1, 2, 3, and then Jimmy Johnson is 6th. And we always talk about, especially with no testing now in January, that there's a lot of anticipation coming down here. And I talked to Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson both, and you know, they were off last year at the restrictor plate tracks. Jimmy did finish second here in the July race, but he said, I just got my car driving good. So that right now, at least in the early stages, I think that's got to make that group feel pretty good that they're at the top of the speed charts.
You know, it's something that's sort of interesting to me. Think about all the things they've done to the cars to make them run faster down here. Last year in the first practice, Bill Elliott was the quickest at a 47.96. Right now we're only at a 40. That's 0.2 quicker, and there's a lot more than that in these cars.
Well, and you know, Darrell, that if they didn't do anything, that these guys will find a little more horsepower. It may only be 1 or 2 or 3, but they always do, because some of these teams are working on these restrictor plate engines nonstop. But there's a few things that they did to it that actually added drag to the car. The shark fin being bigger and extending down the length of the deck lid, that added a little bit of drag. The end plates, the curved end plates, added a little bit of drag. That's one of the reasons they elected to up the plate by a 64th of an inch, because of the aero drag that they picked up. There's the end plate. Last year, at all the other tracks besides Daytona and Talladega, you have an option of running a flat end plate right there where you see the DuPont, or you have the option of running the curved one. Well, last year at the restrictor plate tracks, they mandated that you had to run that spoiler or that wing at 10 degrees. This gurney lip right there has to be 1 inch tall, and you had to run flat end plates. That's one of the things they changed this year, is you have to run curved end plates on the wing.
Could we look at that from the top down, that end plate, and just to get an idea of the curvature of it? And there's maybe the one closest to us. There you can see how it's curved, and it's got kind of a wing shape instead of just being flat straight across, and that difference in profile where that bulges out, that's going to add a little bit of drag.
Well, what added the most drag of all the things they did is that gurney lip.
Well, now that's actually the same. Yeah. We run 3/16 of an inch at the downforce tracks, 1 inch at Daytona and Talladega.
And I can't see how that fin, I don't see where that would have added drag. I could see how it would maybe in yaw, but I don't see how it would hurt the car so much in a straight line.
The big thing, though, was the curved end plates that added some aero drag, and they upped that restrictor plate hole by 64th. How significant is a 64th? It's about 12 to 14 horsepower. This is the biggest restrictor plate, though, that we've run here since the 1989 Daytona 500.
89, oh yeah, 89.
I remember that one.
This is the Daytona 500.
Yes, it is. All right, how many entries for this year's Daytona 500? Stick around. We'll tell you after the break. Top speeds, pretty much as when we left you. Denny Hamlin, 5th on that list, was the first car to go on track. There are 44 cars in line to go out, and at the back of that line, the first driver who will make a second run today will be Jimmy Johnson. That is unless somebody decides to shoot the line and do what every driver can't stand. I mean on the road. Somebody cutting up to the front of the merge and ignoring everyone who has patiently waited their turn. But that's the way it goes. And oh, by the way, 43 cars will start the Daytona 500. 54 cars are here to attempt to make the Great American Race. Last year it was what, 58 last year? 56 last year. 54 this year, 56 last year, and the record is 60 some. I mean, in recent times.
You had 64 in 1995.
Yeah. So, but it's not unusual to have an incredible amount of cars here for the Daytona 500.
Right.
And people come here when they can't go anywhere else. You know, we've had 90 days. You can make a 90-day note if you have to get down here. I've done that, by the way, and hope that I won enough money when I got here that I could pay the note off when I got back home.
And
didn't always work out that way either.
Right.
But people come here when they can't go anywhere else.
Well, you know, this race is so different from the other 3 restrictor plate races. We go back to Talladega twice and back here in July. You better be fast on qualifying day. You still want to be that, but you've got another shot at getting your car to drive good on the Gatorade Dual races next Thursday that will be on speed. And we see a lot of times it's not the fast cars that get in, it's the car that gets their car driving good.
Carl Edwards, 19th quickest. Here's Matt.
Mike, Kurt Busch just climbed back inside the Blue Deuce. The temperatures have come down. The team has made some changes. His biggest complaint to crew chief Steve Addington during the break here from his first run, the car wandered a little bit more than he was used to, and he also noted that the left side skirt hit the racetrack, so they trimmed that when he brought that back in. Then they placed some small tabs right behind and in front of the jack post just to see how much that left side skirt is hitting. And just to give you an update, Larry Mack, on the weather, as far as the wind conditions go, the last 2-minute average, 10 miles per hour, and then you factor in some big gusts that we've had coming through every so often, so the wind definitely could play a factor.
And Matt, the reason that car is wandering a little bit, of course, it's windy, that's going to move it around maybe a little bit more, but what you try to do, and Larry knows this, is you have zero toe in the car. In other words, both front tires are zero straight ahead. Try to take as much drag out of the car, out of the tires, as you possibly can. As a matter of fact, you may even tow them in just a skosh because of deflection in the tie rods and then, you know, whatever else, so that when it's going down the racetrack, the front tires are just running straight as an arrow down the track.
And what they may do, and I agree totally, that could be, and probably is what Kurt's feeling, he may put a little bit of toe out in it. If Kurt says that feels better, but that stopwatch slows down, put that toe out back in again.
Well, I can assure you with toe it drives better because it stabilizes the steering wheel is what it does when you got a little toe in it. But it'll run faster with no toe or towed in just a tick. After all, you only got to drive it 2 laps.
That's right. A.J. Allmendinger in the Richard Petty Motorsports, number 43. Want to send best wishes to Richard's wife, Linda. She's had a rough go of it and has been hospitalized, and hope that she's doing well, and the King and their whole family.
And you know, it came late in the game, but essentially there's Dale Inman that has won this race many times with Richard Petty as his crew chief. The merger with Yates and Richard Petty Motorsports did come to fruition. You see they are running Fords here, and the 4 drivers now will be A.J. Allmendinger, Casey Kane, Elliott Sadler, and Paul Menard.
And when you look at Dale Inman, we just had a shot of there, that's Chad Knaus's guy that he's trying to catch.
That's right.
Because Dale has, what, 8 championships?
Yeah, with a couple of drivers.
Gary Labonte and Richard.
Tomorrow, the most anticipated ARCA event of the year takes the green flag on speed. Danica Patrick rolls off 12th in her competitive stock car debut here on the high banks of Daytona. Defending race winner James Buescher starts from the pole tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern, only on speed. Bobby Labonte has moved over to TRG Motorsports. Actually ran some races for them at the end of last year for Kevin Buckler's group, and he has the TaxSlayer.com Chevrolet out on track.
He's one team that's outside the top 35, but we know regardless he will be in the Daytona 500. We have 2 past champions outside the top 35, Bobby Labonte and Bill Elliott, but Bobby's the most recent champion.
Man, that thing, holy smoly.
So he is one of 36 drivers who know they will be in the Daytona 500, and there was a lot of late off-season shuffling, if you will, of car owner point positions, so that all of the top 35 owner points positions from last year are now filled with teams that will take the green flag in 2010.
Well, that thing's bucking around like a horse. I mean, every time it hits a bump, it kind of porpoises back and forth. Sparks fly out from under it. They must have the rear bleeds and no shocks, Larry, wide open.
Yeah, we talk about NASCAR mandating the rate of the rear springs at a 500 rate in left and right. For the race, you can put a little more in the right rear. They issue the rear shocks to the teams to qualify and race, but they are adjustable. You can adjust them a little bit to change how they feel and how they go across the bumps.
Labonte, despite how that car looked, Darrell, just laid down the 12th fastest lap of the day.
Yeah, it's bottoming out a lot. They get that fixed, it'll pick up a little speed.
Travis Kvapil is in the number 37 Ford for 2010. Now, this is one of the cars that was involved in these owner point swaps. Their team, front row, along with Robert Richardson Jr. is here in the 38, the 37 and 38 have merged with what was Yates Racing which we thought had merged with Richard Petty Motorsports, but that deal became pretty complicated in that the points that Yates Racing earned last year with their 96 and 98 cars, now those transfer to this number 37 and the 38. So basically, they're in the top 35.
And who really got hurt on that whole deal was Red Bull Racing Scott Speed in '82. They thought one of these top 35 teams was going to completely go away. Since they finished 36, they would have slid in, but now they're going to have to race their way in and qualify their way in the first 5 races. It guarantees you in the first 5 races of the new season.
I can only recall one time when somebody has actually gone away, and I think that was a Ganassi deal, one of his cars that they
did. 41 card.
They did
kind of disappear.
Yeah, it was a 41 or one of those.
On that.
Yeah, one of those cars.
Matt?
Mike, catching up with Casey Kane, currently 26 fastest. So Casey, you've talked to Kenny Francis. What are some of the things you guys are going to work on after your initial run?
Well, I guess they're going to try a little bit with the Ford engine, and we're going to make some front spring changes. Looking at some of the other cars, some are softer, some are stiffer, so and some are faster. So it's hard to say which way to really go, but we're going to try something different and just kind of go from there and see if we can pick up a little bit of speed for tomorrow.
Well, the good news, you had a very successful night last night on the dirt.
Yeah, the guys started off to another great season right off the bat with Joey Saldana, Budweiser car winning. Looked really good, so it should be a fun year in the sprint cars as well.
All right, thanks, Casey.
Thanks.
32 cars have taken time. Dale Earnhardt Jr. still tops the list over Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon. Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Alien vs. Predator, 2010's biggest multi-species, multiplayer event. Never been to one of those. Here's Ryan Newman for Stewart Haas Motorsports. After a great run in making the chase and in the chase last year. We were talking about the teams that had to go away, and it was part of the Ganassi Racing and DEI, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated merger, where DEI had previously absorbed the assets of Bobby Ginn Racing, and the 13 and 14 that Joe Nemechek and Sterling Marlin had driven, those cars had to go away, and I don't believe either the points from either of those cars were allowed to be transferred elsewhere when those two teams merged. It's very complicated as far as what happens during the off season. But basically it comes down to this. If a team finishes in the top 35 in points, owner points, they acquire, that's point standing is an asset. It's an asset to that team, and they are allowed, if they're not going to continue to run that team, they are allowed to transfer that interest to another entity and presumably receive compensation for it.
As far as I can tell, it's a convoluted way of having franchising. I mean, when you get right down, when you reduce it all down, an owner has something of value that he can sell or he can market or he can do whatever.
Exactly. That's the way the owner develops equity.
Exactly.
Because we've all seen teams in the last 10 years that where owners retired or went out of business, and all they were left with were a pile of old cars and parts and equipment.
And you had to auction it off
right.
at 50 cents on the dollar if you were lucky. So, sometimes I don't understand it, but certainly I appreciate what they're doing for the owners.
Yeah, it's a good thing for the owners. It gives them some equity besides just the equipment they own. And sorry if we belabor the point trying to explain who got what and where they got it from. The main point is there are 35 cars that will be locked into the first 5 races based on last year's owner points, and it won't necessarily be the teams that earned those points in 2009.
In the value of that, but aside from your sponsor being at these racetracks, monetarily, when you think about the first 5 races, which includes the Daytona 500, it's about $500,000 guaranteed purse if you finish dead last in the first 5 events.
$1 million bill was fastest in this practice session a year ago, I believe, and he just clicked off the 4th fastest lap of the day, and Elliott is by far the fastest Ford with that run for the Wood brothers.
You know, one thing that I didn't realize is Bill Elliott is 54 years old. He's been doing this a long time, and it just doesn't seem like it's been that long to me.
No. Krista?
Well, Mike, at the top of this practice session, I talked about the camaraderie, how they're already gelling in the 56 unit. So how about this? We're not talking to just the driver. We're going to get the crew chief, Pat Tryson, over here, too. How is the car, Martin? And obviously, you know a little something about speed here at Daytona, last year's pole sitter.
Yeah, the car is a little bit slow right now, but we just need to make it drive better and not worry about the speed. You know, you kind of got what you got speed-wise when you get here, and I don't think Pat came here putting all his effort and all his eggs into the qualifying basket. I think some of the best cars I've ever had here in the race, I've qualified in the 30s, so we'll see what happens, but so far everything's going okay. We're just trying to get the car driving a little better.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, too. I want to know, how good is this driver that you've got? You talked about camaraderie. That's what you said right before this practice session.
He's as good as anybody I worked with, so, you know, I mean, obviously Mark and Kurt both made the chase with them, so, you know, we expect the same kind of results this year, you know, win some races and get the Napa Toyota in the chase and see what happens.
That's awesome. Some pretty powerful words from Pat there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
39 cars have now been on track as rain looms to the west. Bill Elliott cracks the top 5. So does Ryan Newman. All right, so maybe you got a no thanks from American Idol this time around. Get this. Speed is searching for the next big showbiz stars. Singers, comedians, dancers, novelty acts. Rutledge, put your hand down. To audition, call 1-877-909-3883 or email, it's the name of the show, fasttracktofame2010@gmail.com. And you could be coming to a Sprint Cup racetrack, appearing on the speed stage, and auditioning for our panel of judges. Wow. This is going to be fun.
Yep. I've always wanted to do that with the drivers, like a karaoke show, you know, because a lot of them don't think they can sing. A lot of them probably think they can dance.
Wow.
And so, you know, I always thought it'd be fun to have a karaoke show.
Well, as we watch Joe Nemechek, Krista's with a fellow who can do both.
Well, actually, I was going to say, Daryl, you're speaking my language. I love karaoke, so we could turn this into a whole different kind of show here. Elliott agrees. But we'll go ahead and talk about race cars and the Daytona 500 specifically. If I remember right, if those raindrops last year would have fell just a few minutes earlier, you would have won the Daytona 500.
Yeah, I pretty much have run that thought through my mind pretty much every day since it happened last year. Just 15 seconds from being Daytona 500 champion, and it was cool to run that good. It was cool to lead laps. I just wish we could have held on. It was Stanley's first ever time in the Daytona 500. So they come back a year later, back with Ford, back with Doug Yates racing engines. So we'll see if we can put ourselves in that situation again and hopefully have a little bit better outcome. But you know, this is the race of all races. You race to win, and you can see how it changed people's lives, and you can see it on their face when they win it for the first time. So I definitely want to experience that one time in my career.
All right, Sadler and Ford back together. That was a pretty successful combination. Thanks, Elliott.
Thanks, Krista. Another new face in the top 5, Robbie Gordon, is now 5th on the board with a 47.90.
By far the fastest Toyota. And you know, I talked to Robbie yesterday during media day here, and Robbie gave me some interesting information that I had not even heard rumors about. He said that 7 car will be here for every race in 2010, but a very good chance he will not. He's working on some other stuff, some other forms of racing. And when I mentioned the Indianapolis 500, he went probably.
Yeah.
So
he wants to do the double once again.
Well, he's good at Indy, I tell you. Shame he almost had it won there, what, 4 or 5 years ago.
Now, you've seen this paint scheme in the Nationwide Series, not so much in Sprint Cup, but it's Reed Sorensen at the wheel of the Dollar General Toyota this year. And he is 33rd.
And he's also shares a birthday with Darrell Waltrip. He's a little younger than Darrell. He's 24 years old today.
Oh, just to be 24 today. Just for today, you know, just one day.
David Rudman pops up to 11th. He's the 3rd quickest Toyota, 48.08.
You know, I want to go back and address something that Krista talked to Martin Truex Jr. and Pat Tryson about. And you definitely come down here. There's Robbie Gordon climbing out to his number 7 car in the top 5. But you always come down here and you walk that tightrope about speed in a good driving race car. And I think what supports that, and I've been looking closely here, in the last 40 years, the history of the Daytona 500, only 6 times has the pole winner won the race. And I think it's because you have that fast race car on qualifying day, but when you get to the race, you just don't get it driving very good.
All right, Krista's with that fellow who just cracked the top 5.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of excitement down here in the number 7 camp. I mean, not only do the cars look good, if I'm gauging what you're saying, they feel pretty good right now, too.
Well, to roll out in a legit lap by myself, to be that close to the top of the board, you know, we sat in line a lot longer than a lot of guys did, so our oil was cooler. I think we have a legitimate shot at the pole here for the Daytona 500.
That's so exciting. A monster chance here for Robbie Gordon. Matt Yoakum.
And Kevin Bono, man, you know, is all about preparing fast cars for here at Daytona, especially in the past. You've always had some good cars up front row. Bono, looking at right now the speed chart, you're 13th fastest. You might get a shot in with one more run if the rain holds off. What's your agenda for the rest of this session?
Oh, lucky 13, huh? You know, just talked to professional spotter Joey the pilot. He's our spotter from last year, but he thinks that the rain's going to hold off for this practice. So we're going to throw one more run on it, being a little on the aggressive side, just to see if we can go past our limit of our tune-up on the front end and try to get the attitude of the car a little bit nicer. And that's about it. And I believe this is all the practice we're going to get before qualifying. So just see if we can run this package this aggressive and without hurting too much speed by hitting the splitter. And that'll be it. We'll throw a good wax job on it and put it in line.
Now, Joey's not going to invoice you guys for the radar help, is he?
Well, he said last year was free, so...
well, you get what you pay for.
He's a great pilot.
Because it's raining. You can tell Kevin and Joey as we watch Boris Said in the number 26. And it looks like Boris may be the last car on track to get a lap because they have held the line at the end of pit road. No one else is being allowed on track.
Be careful, Boris.
As Boris comes around in the Window World Cares Foundation Ford Fusion.
I talked to Boris this morning, and of course this car is locked into the first 5 races, and there you see the red flag waving for the rain. Boris said we're going to be here the first 5 races, and then we're just going to have to reevaluate, see where we're at, see if we can get more sponsorship before we move beyond those first 5.
We'll stand by here and see what happens. There is always the chance that this shower will be a brief one.
We're in Florida. You don't like the weather? Just wait 30 minutes.
Brief.
54 cars entered for the Daytona 500. You see the 8 listed who have yet to make a run on the track. I believe 5 of those 8 are in line and waiting to run.
Looks like it's a wrap.
The 46 of Terry Cook. But let's show you what we're looking at. Okay, the track is here. Look what's coming. Oh my gosh.
Don't look now, Margaret.
So it may be bad weather where you are. I know in our part of North Carolina, the kids only had 3/4 of one day of school all week due to all the snow and freezing. And I guess New Jersey's getting hammered, and so are a lot of places, including Daytona Beach.
It's a dadgum week too early, though. It was supposed to do that snowstorm next week. Remember, like they did in '79.
That's so everybody would be home.
They had to
watching
stay home and
Fox
watch the race
and watch the race.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's only
Still
a week
not,
away.
yeah, it's still not out of the possibility.
Maybe it won't melt.
And now most of the cars are turning around and heading back to the Sprint Cup garage.
Yeah.
As it looks like that's going to be the end of this first practice session.
And all those cars that were listed there, those are guys that they either got to get a good speed in tomorrow or during qualifying, or they're going to have to race their way in. And the thing about, as we look at the top 10 in practice, if you're one of those guys outside the top 35, when qualifying's over tomorrow, you don't care where you're at as far as the order, as long as you're one of the fastest 3 cars of the go or go homers, you know you'll race the Daytona 500.
That's correct, because the way the lineup is determined, tomorrow's pole position qualifying will set the front row. It'll also set the lineup for the Gatorade duels that you will see here next Thursday on Speed. Once we run the duels, Everybody will line up where they finished, including the top 35 in owner points, and the first 2 finishers in each dual race that are not in that top 35 guaranteed in. And then there are 4 spots at the back of the field. As Larry pointed out, 3 of them will go to the 3 fastest time trial cars, not yet in the race. 1 spot's reserved for the most recent past champion, not yet in the race. And if he doesn't need it, we fall back to the 4th fastest time trial speed. So there's a lot of different ways to get in this race. None of them all that easy.
That's an interesting little box there on top of David Rudiman's car.
It.
They've got they're monitoring all the different temperatures of things. You heard Robbie Gordon talk about they sat on pit road for a long time and all their oils got cool. These guys, they're trying to heat up the engine oil right there. They've got a heater on that. The gear. And then they've also got one on the transmission, and they're monitoring the temperatures there with also, you know, they're wanting to keep the battery charged because they'll run a little bitty alternator on these things, you know, not near what you would need to race, but they're just trying to just anything you can do to help the horsepower with that carburetor restrictor plate engine.
Somewhere around 260 degrees on the engine oil, because when you roll off a pit road, that engine oil will immediately drop. That's oil in the tank. Once the oil goes into the engine, it'll drop down. You'd like to see it maintain at least 220 degrees once you get up to speed, because it will then heat back up as the car runs. But you need to roll off pit road with about 260.
What is that all about right there? Waltrip Operations pre-race.
That's entirely top secret. Krista.
Down here with Brad Keselowski, and boy is he excited about his first Daytona 500. And why wouldn't you be? I mean, you've won at Talladega. Now you're getting ready to start your first Daytona 500. I'm trying to pump you up. Can you tell? Do I even need to, though?
Well, you left out one of the most important parts. The 12 Penske car has won here 2 years ago, Daytona 500. So no pressure, but they don't call this the Great American Race for nothing. Huge race. Very fortunate to get to run here, and just looking forward to it.
One of my favorite stories from Media Day, and it was you saying that, tell me about the time you were in the mall and you got confused for another driver. What's that about?
You know, it's kind of a weird experience. I've never been confused for Casey Kane before. So it's the first time for everything. I don't feel like I look like Casey Kane. I guess I'm not a good judge of character, but that's a little interesting.
That's awesome. But you're Brad Keselowski, and certain people will know that. But yeah, they're worse people to be, I guess, confused with, right?
Well, I mean, I guess I could be confused for worse people. I mean, Casey's a pretty cool guy. But yeah, I mean, just happy to be here. That's the general theme of the weekend. Looking forward to getting started with this 12 group here on a fresh 2010 season, and looking forward to getting Dodge to victory lane.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brad. Matt Yoakum, who have you got?
And Chris, the rain continues to fall. I'm caught up with the Rain Man from Memorial Weekend, the Coca-Cola 600 winner, David Rudiman. Number one, everyone commenting and very impressed with your group's electronics that you have up on top of the roof.
Yeah, it's all stuff that MWR's done in-house. Not exactly sure all what it does, but it does look pretty impressive setting up on top of the car on the Aerodynamics machine. But that car's been pretty good. I mean, we got a couple laps before the rain came, and you know, Toyota's done a great job giving us some good horsepower, and guys have been doing good, you know, getting the cars ready. And so, you know, we'll see how we stack up tomorrow, I guess.
Shot at the pole?
You know, I don't know. You don't ever know what those other guys are holding back, but I'm proud of what we got so far, and the guys brought me a great Aerodynamics machine. So we'll see if we can do it when the time counts, and when it matters anyway.
You said that you felt like your team's electronics box needed one small adjustment, needed one small part. What was that?
I think if we mounted like a disco ball or something on top of it, it'd be really, really cool. But I don't know. It looks pretty cool, and that's just stuff. Continue to evolve things and make things a little neater and a little more user-friendly, and it makes the guys that work on things, that makes their job a little bit easier too, I think.
All right, thanks, David.
Thanks.
And Mike, just to let you know, we already have had one sighting of the Hall of Famer Buzzy Rudiman down here, but he just wandered off.
Now, the track is still available for practice. This session is not over. However, the yellow flag is out, so no cars may enter the track at this time, but they have not shut it down. There's only 1 or 2 cars left at the end of the practice line. So let's go back to the garage and Krista.
Yeah, we were with AJ Allmendinger, and you know, we were talking a little earlier. I would ask you how everything's going, but obviously you've been at Daytona here a couple weeks ago, and you didn't have to stop when it was raining then.
No, I've been living here. I think I'm going to buy a condo in Daytona. I've been here for like 3 weeks straight now, but no, it's the Best Buy Ford is not too bad. We'd like to have run a little quicker, but the important thing is it's the first time that I can actually look at the timing board and just want to run quicker just for the purpose of running quicker instead of having to count each go or go homer and know where I'm at. So we'd like to have been a little quicker, but it's not too bad.
So are you saying that you sleep better at night this year?
Yeah, there's no chance of Lynn and I divorcing over the Daytona holiday season, basically, because it was the last 3 years. Just, it's not fun being here and knowing that you're not in the race and you have to wait until the duels to get in. So we're a little bit more relaxed and enjoying it, just working with a new team and getting going.
And Darryl was talking about karaoke a little earlier. DW, if you're looking for karaoke in the garage, this is your guy.
Yeah, man. Show me something. Show me something.
He's actually putting you on the spot, but you guys do. You do karaoke in the bus a lot, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it has to be the right moment.
Oh, this is not the right moment?
This is not the right moment, but I've been known to do a little Sir Mix-a-Lot, baby got back, you know, so you gotta catch me at the right time. If DW wants to come over, you want to come over, we'll get our groove on, DW.
All right, brother.
Spot, well, we won't say the spot on TV because we don't want people coming over, but just find me, DW. We'll get
and the plot thickens. Actually, that's one of my karaoke songs.
Has he got any George Jones or, you know, Waylon?
George Jones is what DW is requesting.
Is that what he's got? Well, you know, we are at Best Buy, so we can do anything. We can get all kinds of karaoke machines if you want, TVs, whatever you want, DW. You know, you're an okay guy. I'll give you the hookup.
Thanks a lot, AJ.
Since AJ brought it up, let's run down the fastest of the go or go homers. Bill Elliott, 4th overall, is quickest. Max Pappas, 17th overall, is 2nd. Bobby Labonte is 3rd. And if Bobby times in, that's good news for Scott Speed because neither Labonte nor Elliott would need the champions provisional. So, and then after that, Michael Waltrip, Joe Nemechek, Casey Mears. So right now the track is too wet to practice. We'll see if this rolls away or is the heavy stuff about to come down. Let's go back to Matt.
Mike, I don't know of any team really in the garage area that has had more asset allocation or mergers, so to speak, than Front Row Motorsports. And Regan Smith, you guys have had a busy winter.
Yeah, well, we're Furniture Row Motorsports, but we had a really busy winter too. And you know, I can't thank Barney Visser and Joe Garone enough for the moves that they made during the offseason. We brought a lot of good people in, and I haven't been this excited to come down to Daytona in a long time. I know, you know, everybody's pumped up. It's the first race, and you know, everything's new for everybody right now. But and I've experienced that before, but this year it's a little bit different. I'm really motivated and excited about the guys that I'm working with. Pete Rondu is car chief. Ryan Conium is crew chief. Mark McCarroll came on board, and we got some other.
A lot of New Englanders there.
Yeah, we got between New England and Canada. We're like the team from the Northeast right now. So, you know, everybody's excited, and hopefully we can make it pay off on the racetrack throughout the course of the year.
With so many impressive people coming on board, where do you feel like it will help the program the most early on?
Well, we've always had a pretty good super speedway program, so you know that wasn't our biggest focus. Short track program was decent at times last year, so our biggest focus was the intermediate stuff. We really wanted to work on that. That's the majority of the races, and that's where we need a little bit of help. So we've been focusing on that, and you know, we're fortunate to come down here and be locked into the show. That was a good feeling after last year. I came down last year, and I'm losing my hair anyways, and I swear I lost a lot more of it after that week. So you know, it worked out really good in the off season for us with that deal.
All right, thank you. No more sleepless nights for Regan Smith, guys.
You know, Mike and Darryl, he talked about all the different people in place over there with a lot of companies laying people off. That race team hired over 20 new employees during the off season, so that's a great thing.
Thursday, NASCAR is back. We're here in Daytona for a pair of races on the high banks. Be with us as the field is set for the 500. The Gatorade Duel at Daytona, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, live only on Speed. Rain continues to come down here at Daytona. Here are the drivers who must qualify, and there are their practice speeds so far. 11 of the 19 drivers not yet in the field, 35 are locked in, have taken laps today. And here's a look at their ranking among that select group. They're separated by just about 1 second. Krista.
Well, Mike, there were a couple races going on today. The race to get out on the track to get some laps in for the qualifying session. And then, David Reagan, you had a race earlier today. Our director, Artie Kempner, saw you in a foot race. What's that all about?
We're just ready to race. We're here in Daytona. It's February. No, we were just walking over to the garage earlier, and I was with a friend, and he said, "Hey, I can beat you to those double yellow lines there." And I said, "Well, let's go." And so it was pretty clear. I think it was a tie. I didn't really see who won, but our UPS Ford has made a few laps on the track. Obviously, the weather is holding us up now, but you know, it's good to be back in Daytona. It's good to be back in a race car.
And with a new crew chief.
Yeah, Donnie Wingo on board, and so a lot of new faces on our UPS team, and you know, things have clicked very well here already. It was a good January. We were able to test a few times, so I feel like that we should hit the ground running, and if we can just get the weather to cooperate a little bit, we need a few more laps, but regardless, everything's going good so far.
All right, thanks, David. Matt?
Krista, one driver came up a little bit short with the weather, as Boris said. You got one lap in, and then the rain hit.
Yeah, but I'm not worried at all because thanks to Jamie McMurray, we got a really good parking space and we have the points. So, you know, our Window World Cares cars really, I mean, we're locked in the show doing that one lap, and I have no pressure at all. I just hope we can get a little more practice to, you know, get the thing tuned up for qualifying. But, you know, we got a really good sponsor, Window World Cares. Are raising money to help the St. Jude's Children's Hospital, so that's great. And this is Bill Jenkins' first race with Latitude 43 as a new team owner, and I'm sure he's excited back at home watching.
When you think back to all the history that you have in auto racing, do you ever think back to July 2006 with about 2 laps to go and coulda, woulda, shoulda?
Yeah, I mean, we got the pole that weekend, and that was really special. But to be leading those last 10 laps and then your old buddy Smoke passing me with 2 to go, it was still, you know, to finish 4th. When Tony was doing donuts in the grass, I almost went over there to do a few donuts because I felt like I won. It was a really good feeling. But ever since then, you know, I came back a year later and we were on the pole until rain canceled qualifying. So here it is raining again. So I have bad luck with the weather. But, you know, this year, thanks to Jamie McMurray in the 2016, we're locked in the show. So I don't have that same pressure that, you know, people like Max Pappas and Joe Nemechek have to go through this week.
And Mike, we were talking about the weather. If it was about 45 degrees cooler, we could actually pull out the bobsleds and go bobsledding.
Yeah, you know what else, Maddie? Looks like Boris is having a pretty good hair day.
Yeah. DW says you're having a really good hair day, by the way.
Yeah, it's a little frizzy, but I'm using different products, so I'm not worried about it. And speaking of bobsleds, next week, the U.S. Olympic team going for the gold in 2-man. You better watch.
In the Bodine bobsleds, Boris is a past champion of the Bodine Bobsled Challenge put on by Wheeling Engineering, and his father was on the 1952 U.S. Olympic bobsled team.
Say, Harvick didn't even have sense enough to get out of the rain.
Hair products. Not sure about it.
A lot of excitement for you across the Fox family of networks. Daytona 500 qualifying is tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. And tomorrow evening, the first big stock car competition of the new year, the Budweiser Shootout, 8 p.m. on Fox. 24 cars go at it for 25 and then 50 laps. Thursday, the Gatorade Duel at Daytona, 2 o'clock right here on Speed. And the Great American Race, Valentine's Day, noon Eastern Time on Fox.
You know, at Bud Shootout practice last night, wild and crazy as it was, and talking to several of the different drivers, it was what we kind of suspected. The closing rate is so much faster than what they had here last year or even at Talladega, that some of the drivers kind of felt like that. Even said you're closing so fast and you let off the throttle, but the guy behind you doesn't. And so he's shoving you right up into somebody. So I think that had a lot to do with what happened yesterday. Hope it doesn't have a lot to do with what might happen tomorrow night, but it
hope
could.
You're right.
It could.
Krista.
Well, Mike, there's always those feel-good stories down here at Daytona, and we found it in terms of the company. It's not even a company. It's not a sponsor. It's a personal cause for Mike Wallace. Tell us a little bit about Double Harvest.
Well, Double Harvest, you can go to doubleharvest.org. It's a humanitarian relief group in Haiti. My daughter, Lindsay Wallace Van Wingerden now, got married into the Van Wingerden family back in November. And the Van Wingerdens have had a presence over in Haiti for 30 years on a humanitarian side. And ever since the earthquake hit and the tragedy, it's just been 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just, you know, the hospital that they have on the grounds, the school, the church. And the Van Wingerdens themselves have funded this program for 30 years now. And now it's time, we need some financial help. We need some, so I had a couple uniforms made. As I said, this is not a sponsor. This is a...
You've seen this hospital firsthand before the earthquake. You've been to Haiti.
I was at Haiti last year with Tom Van Wingerden, yep. And the hospital's wonderful. The area around there, where Port-au-Prince, where the earthquake actually hit, is not too great, and it's really bad now. And anybody that's wanting to donate and thinking about Haiti, we've heard all the causes. Don't forget about it. It's still a crisis over there. And, you know, so doubleharvest.org. And money well spent. Hey, check out the back.
Yeah, we're going to not just tell you the website, we're going to actually show it to you, doubleharvest.org. That's just one of the stories going on down here at Daytona. What's the latest breaking story in the Wallace family?
Latest breaking story, I was just told 2 hours ago, I guess it's been announced on the new NASCAR Twitter page, that Chrissy Wallace, my daughter, even though she lives at home, I just found out she's running the nationwide race here next weekend for Rick Ware, so I'm excited about that. They gave me all the facts. She makes the race. It'll be the first time four family members have ever run in a race. You know, just some exciting things. I'm down here driving a Sprint Cup car for Brian Keselowski, the 92 car. And I know I'm going to have to race my way in through the 150, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm up for that challenge, and you know, all the guys over at East Bay. I'm supposed to be doing some dirt track coverage tonight. I was there last night and seen a great race with Scott Bloomquist and Earl Pearson winning at the end. But other than that, not much happening here.
Not much at all. We'll get that 92 car in the field so that we can raise some money for Double Harvest.
Congratulations. You got married, I understand.
Look at you. You just snuck that in there, didn't you? Well, congratulations to your daughter.
Thank you very much. Look, everybody remember, all this racing stuff, this is a good cause.
There it is, doubleharvest.org. Thank you very much, Mike.
And Mike, Larry, I was talking to Rick Hendrick this morning. It's incredible what Rick's organization has done as well. It's amazing how you saw the special on Speed I think it was a week or so ago. Rick has sent airplanes, helicopters, flown in doctors. His organization has brought out orphans through Samaritan's Purse. Just one of the greatest things I think that he's probably ever done. He's such a humanitarian, and it's just a great job over there helping those folks out.
We're under a rain delay in pre-qualifying practice for the Daytona 500. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Marathon, fueling the American spirit. By Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Try a new way to indulge in Hershey's. And by Toyota, moving forward. Dale Earnhardt Jr. atop the leaderboard. 3 of the 4 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets in the first 3 spots. Then Bill Elliott's Ford and Robbie Gordon's Toyota. Let's join Krista in the garage.
Yes, we've caught up with Michael Waltrip driving not the 15. We were confused a little earlier. It's the 51 because we didn't want to get that turned around.
Well, I wanted to honor Dale, and you know, I won and did so well in the 15. I like having those memories and left like they are. So we put 51 on this one. It's got a flat paint scheme on it. I think it makes the Napa jump off there better, and I got a new sponsor, Tums. And you know, when we started MWR, I ate a lot of those. We struggled.
You ate them like lunch, like that was just a food source for you.
Well, they're a good source of calcium. I kept telling myself when I was eating them, but today's more relaxed. We're competitive enough to think we can get one of those top spots for guys that aren't locked in the race, and got a couple cars up on the other end of the garage we think we know can win the race, so pretty happy.
Aren't you just amazed at how Michael Waltrip Racing, your organization, has changed just in the short time you've been in existence?
Has it been a short time?
It's been a short time, yeah.
Feels almost like an eternity, but I'm real proud of my team. Bobby Kennedy, Ty Norris, they were there when we started, then Cal came in, and we brought in Rodney, and now Pat Trison. Got to work with Pat last night on my shootout car, and that was incredible, just listening to him and sciencing through what we were doing. So I'm talking slow too, Krista, because you said you wouldn't run off. Usually when I do one of these interviews, I get in this speed right here because I want to make sure I get in everything I have to say. And today it's sort of nice just chatting with you.
Well, we would wish your brother a happy birthday, but we're going to throw over to the other side of the garage to Matt Yoakum. So go ahead. Can you throw it to Matt?
Yeah. Hey, man, I want to tell Darrell happy birthday, and take it away, bud.
Absolutely. Happy 29th birthday, DW. Don't look a day over 27. Catching up with Brian Vickers. You made the chase last year early on here in practice. We've got some rain now, but how was your car?
Does it matter?
Not really.
Yeah, our car has a lot of downforce in it, so it's not really a qualifying car. We didn't expect to come down here and sit on the pole. We're just trying to make it drive good. It's okay. You know, our teammate Scott, you know, he's more for speed, and that's you know, our focus has really been on getting him in the race or locked in and qualifying ideally. But it's good to be back at the racetrack. I got to tell you, it feels fun to be back in a race car going 200 around Daytona.
Now, you know, it's DW's birthday, and I know last year you jumped on board of a very fun activity, jumping out of airplanes, parachuting. Do you think maybe you could take DW up as a birthday present and take him parachuting?
I would absolutely love to throw him out of an airplane. Happy birthday. That'd be great. If he's willing to jump, then he can come with us. Red Bull has one of the best skydiving teams in the world. They taught me how to skydive, and I loved it. I've got like 30 jumps. I'm hooked. I can't wait to go again. If you're feeling frisky, let's go.
Well, DW, we do have a couple off days on Monday and Tuesday. What's your schedule look like?
No, Matt. Don't even go there. I'll go. I'll race. I'll go around a racetrack with him. I'm not jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
He's going to race around the track with you, but never jump out of an airplane with you.
You know, even with all the traveling that these guys do, Brian Vickers never stops traveling. In fact, he spent a lot of his off season over in Europe and hung out with Formula One driver David Coulthard and spent a lot of time over at Red Bull's Formula One team that's just outside of London. Said he had a great time over there while he was just seeing the way they run that Formula One operation over there.
We'll take a break and come back to Daytona. It's the first day of practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. An American tradition is renewed. Speed Weeks continues in Daytona. The season starts here, all the way from this first practice to Daytona 500 Victory Lane. Daytona Speed Weeks coverage on Speed continues. Here's a look at the top 10. In fact, let's take you down through the drivers who were able to get on track during this practice session. 46 of them. All 35 of the drivers who are locked into the Daytona 500 did make at least one run.
Saw Bill Elliott, by far the fastest Ford. Remember, he's one of the go or go home cars, and you know, we can say we have the Dodge camp here, but it's pretty much the Penske Dodges because that's the only team running Dodges, and they are 7th, 14th, and 16th.
You know, Larry, I can remember, and you probably can too, we used to come down here for like 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was almost a whole month of February. It was not Speed Week. It was Speed Weeks.
And it wasn't just pole qualifying. It was, well, if you didn't like your Sunday time, you could go back out Monday. You didn't like that, you go back out Tuesday. If you didn't like that, you could qualify again on Wednesday.
That's right. 4 chances you had to try to improve your speed, which you never did.
Now, all these drivers are among the go-or-go homers. I think 5 of the 8 were lined up to practice when the rains came. They're the group by speed of the 11 drivers who did get on track among the go-or-go homers.
Pretty impressed with some of those speeds, though, Mike. When you think about those teams like the 90 car, Casey Mears, or even the 32 with Reed in it, those are decent speeds for teams that are just getting their feet under them.
So another round of practice is set for later today, but it is weather dependent. And stay tuned to Speed for further updates on the schedule. Wet ever? Yes, it is right now. Across the break, we'll be going to Steve Burns with more from Speed Weeks 2010 in Daytona. All right, now let's go across the way and join Steve Burns.